Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back on Pilot 509. Today I'm gonna have the privilege of interviewing my instructor, my CFI. I'm gonna interview him and I'm gonna ask him some questions. C'est un bail moi toujours voulu faire. J'ai toujours voulu en le chita ensemble avec lui poser quelques questions peut-être qui sont capables bénéfiques à ou même qui a regardé chaîne ça, qui a regardé vidéo ça. Donc let's talk to Mr. Wilson, Steve Wilson.
Stephen John Wilson is my full name, and I've been flying since 1972 when I was 16 years old, and that was a ways back, whatever that is. It's at least 2 or 3 years. Anyway, I got my private license right out of high school and joined the military as a mechanic on jets in the Air Force and continued civilian flying, and I've been a flight instructor since 1978.
1978.
Yes, sir.
And
Hard to believe my wife's getting that old, isn't it?
But question, so how many hours you are flying then?
I have about 17,500.
17,000.
17,500. That's what's in the logbook. I probably got more than that, but that's what's actually logged in the book.
Okay, wow. And compared to me that have like less than 100.
And most of that, I would say probably 11 to 12,000 hours that is with students, flying with students.
11, 12,000.
Yeah,
okay.
out of the 17.
So did you ever fly commercial or fly the big jets or?
I never have. I've done a little charter work here and there, but and flying for corporations from time to time, but not really as a full-time vocation, more as a fill-in for other people that may have been, on vacation or sick and whatnot. But that was never really my cup of tea. I was more the instructor, fly with students, go home at night instead of be out on the road for 2 or 3 days, traveling. That just wasn't my cup of tea.
So I understand you are A&P. What is an A&P again?
A&P is a mechanic, and the A&P stands for airframe and power plant. They're ratings to your mechanic certificate, the only 2 ratings there is.
And you can work on any airplanes?
Pretty much. There are specialized things in maintenance like avionics and welding and things you have to get separate certification for, or some individual parts like propellers or things like that would be specialty items. But the general everyday to maintenance on an aircraft, airframe power plant mechanic can handle most of that stuff.
And on the side you teach student to fly.
Right. My normal daily work at this point is aviation mechanics, teaching aviation mechanics, and then I'm teaching flight instruction on the side.
Talking flight instruction, so now I'm gonna ask you the real questions. What makes a great pilot?
Well, that's a good question. The right attitude and good judgment. In other words, you have to have an attitude that I'm learning, and I'm always learning, no matter how many hours you have, whether it's 1 hour or 17,000. You got to have that attitude that there's always something more out there, and because there always is. And if you got that judgment and to where you have you want to be that right blend of, you got to have some you got to, you're going after a goal, so you have some go-gettedness, but you do not want to be careless about it. So you want to approach it cautiously, and it is an endeavor that can turn around and bite you, but it doesn't have to be. It can be completely safe. It's a wonderful activity if you approach it right, but that attitude you go with is what's going to make you a good pilot.
Okay. And what exactly should a student be looking for in a CFI, in an instructor, for people that are looking to get flying lessons? So what they should be looking for?
I would look mostly, I've seen some low time instructors who are really good instructors, and I've seen some high time instructors which I didn't think were all that great. One of the things, you're paying a lot of money, so you want to make sure you and the instructor match personality-wise. Because I've seen some good instructors and some good students that maybe weren't a good match. It didn't mean the instructor was bad or the student was bad. So you're spending a lot of money. Go do a little research. Talk to your instructor and see if you get along. If you can't get along and you're always butting heads in the cockpit, you're not learning anything. You're spending money for nothing. So that's one of the primary, is you got to make sure that you and the instructor can get along and that everything's going basically the way you want. He's got the knowledge and he's giving it to you, yet at the same time, he's also your employee. So he's not quite the employee to where you get to tell him what to do, but at the same time, if he's not giving you what you need for whatever reason, whether it's just a personality conflict or whatever, go ahead and switch instructors. That's not a problem. And sometimes even the best of instructors just don't mesh with some students, and or you're just not getting through on a certain level. I've had other instructors, I'm considered a pretty good instructor with a lot of hours, and got straightened out right away because the other instructor either said something a little bit different or a little bit better or just different, and it just like that, the student picked it up, whereas we weren't getting anywhere. We weren't butting heads as far as, personality wise. It's just that there was that frustration that builds when you're not getting something. So don't be afraid to go out and ask another instructor a question or two. You're never locked into one instructor.
Okay. So what is the most common mistake that you see students, make?
The most common mistake. To be honest, I'm not sure I could say there's a most common mistake. They run the gamut of different things. The hardest thing most people ever have is learning the land, but probably the biggest mistake is that people would make in the process of learning has nothing to do with them per se, is they don't have the time or the money to pursue it on a more continuous basis. Or family commitments, they got things. Life happens. Right. And you get to a certain point. The idea to make it work is to have a nice, if you, in an ideal world, you start, you get so many times a week or whatever you and your instructor work out, and you keep doing that. Well, you get weather, you got life, you got family, you got money, you got time commitments. Things happen, and sometimes people just fall by the wayside for a month or two or three or even a year or two, and that's probably the biggest mistake. And again, most of the time it's not the fault of the student. Life happens. You just got to go with it.
Now, question: do you think age is a factor when it comes to become a pilot? Is there an age limit?
There is no age limit. You do have to pass an FA flight physical, third class, and it's not too bad. I have found sometimes my younger students, that ones in the teens, tend to learn a little faster, but I think maybe it's mostly they're not having to worry about the wife, kids, mortgage, job. They don't have these other demands on their time, and so they can concentrate a little bit more on that. I think that's more of an issue in my mind than it is actual age itself. So if you got somebody that can do that, I just don't think age is, if you're physically fit and reasonably mentally alert, I don't think it's really that big of a problem.
What would be an advice you can give anyone watching right now when it comes to aviation and they are thinking about, go for it, and they're like, they think, they're gonna die. So what would be your advice?
Don't die, number one. If you haven't flown before and you're just thinking about it, go take some introductory ride, get with an instructor, and go see if you like it. If you don't like it, obviously don't pursue it. You need to pursue things, and life's too short to go after things you don't like because you think there's some glamour to it or there's some money to it or this, that. No, you can get into aviation because you like aviation. So if you haven't really experienced it, get with somebody to take you up, whether it's a flight instructor. If it's not a good fit or you have some problems, it might have been the instructor. You could try somebody else, and maybe just the way that you're introduced to. You don't want someone that's going to be out there trying to scare you, because it's pretty scary at first for most people because it's something different, and it should be scary. to a certain extent. They don't have to live in mortal fear of it, but a little fear, a little respect is what keeps you alive. You do that. As far as the safety, more so than a lot of things that you will endeavor to do, this is up to you as to how safe you make it. The airplanes are fairly safe. The equipment is fairly safe. You keep things up. Equipment failure is not a big issue, but either pilot preparedness or skill level or attitudes. As we're going back to the attitude, it's the best thing you get. Keep a safety attitude and a learning attitude, and you won't. I mean, I've been flying for years, and I'm still here.